In this video, we're going to look at the basics of your role as an upward soccer coach. But before we do, just a big thank you for being willing to volunteer your time in this position. So we need to start off with the My Upward site. So this will be your best friend through this process. I'll put a link up here at the top, myupward.org. One of the first things you will do as a coach is you'll get sent a link to create a login. So you need to create that login and make sure you can access that site before you ever get sent your rosters or anything like that. Make sure you can access that site. On that site, you will see your team page. Your team page is something that has your game and practice schedule in it. Not only does it have, game days as far as the dates, it has the time of your game. It tells parents what jersey color they're supposed to wear. It tells them what field color they're going to be on. Everything you would need to communicate to your parents is on that team page. So if you can send that to your parents early and often, get them in the habit of looking at that team page, everything they should need is on that team page. Okay. So send that out to them. Also on the My Upward site is your team roster. So as soon as you get your team roster, which is typically right after our last eval day, we'll set up everything. So usually within 24 hours of the eval day, you will have your team roster. We tell people on that eval day that they will hear from their coach within a week, and we definitely prefer sooner rather than later. So on their roster, if you click on a kid's name, their parent contact information will come up, so you'll be able to see phone number and email. And so please use that to communicate and contact them during that first week. Also, there's a communication portal where you can actually communicate via email or text message through parents via that My Upward site. And lastly, there's also a lot of different resources. The coach's playbook is there electronically. The coach's playbook has different drill ideas. It has all the devotions for the year, everything, all the information you would need as a coach in general is in that playbook. There are different drill ideas. There's even some videos that go along with the drills. There is even a system in there where you can manage your entire substitutions for the year in that system. Now, I use a different system, and I'll show you that in this video, but I know a lot of people really like using the system on the My Upward site, and so that works great. All right. So again, first week, as soon as you get your rosters, please contact parents as soon as possible. Let them know who you are, that you will be their coach, and please strive for a response from every parent. I always try to call them first, each parent first, and I know that only about 30% are going to answer because, again, I'm a phone number that they probably don't have saved in their phone. And so then after I've tried calling everybody, I'll text everybody. But when I'm texting, I'm trying to make sure I'm getting a response back. So I'm asking them in that text message to respond to let me know that they've received my text message. And regardless of how I'm contacting them, there are the big three things that I need to make sure I tell them in that initial contact. And so I need to tell them, what time are we going to be practicing and what day are we going to practice on? Because our practices will always be on the same day and at the same time. So you'll either be assigned Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, and you'll have a practice time. That practice day is really important because as a coach, you probably went into this knowing what day you were going to be assigned, but parents do not. A lot of times they may have said, I cannot practice on this day, or maybe they didn't get any restrictions. So they have no idea what practice day they're assigned to. You need to communicate that to them as well as what's time. And of course, we have multiple fields going at the same time. So let them know which field color. Tell them, hey, we have these different flags put up. We will be on the, say, orange or the black field or whatever field you're assigned to. So let them know those big three things. All right. For your practice. For your first practice, know that your kids are going to be nervous. And this is true no matter what age you practice. Now, obviously, if you're doing kindergarten or you're doing first and second grade, that nervousness might be kids literally crying or holding onto their parent's leg, not wanting to come onto the field. But you're going to have to handle some level of nervousness at pretty much every age. For a lot of our kids, no matter how old they are, this might be their first time ever doing a sport on a team. Okay, so factor that in as you're planning your first practice. How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to get them comfortable? This should be something that they look forward to. And so on that first practice, how are you going to start off by really just putting them at ease, making them comfortable with being out there and being with each other? They're probably not going to know many, if any, of the other kids on the team as well. So you need to think, how are you going to get them to know each other and be able to function as a team with a bunch of kids that they've never met before? And then communicate early on your expectations. Again, if they've never been on a team before ever, they don't understand what it's like to be at practice, to listen to a coach, to be able to perform at a way in a game. And so you need to communicate your expectations early and make sure you re-communicate them over and over again. And so really let them know what your expectations are. How does practice work for you? Practice schedule. Super important to have a practice schedule, have a plan. Think about what you're going to do during your practice beforehand. Upward, huge priority right here. We will always start and end on time. Do not always, whatever your practice time, if your practice time is at 5:30, be there ready to go at 5:30. And if your practice time starts at 5:30, that means you are done at 6:30. We are going to be respectful of parents' time. We're not going to start late or start early. We're not going to end late or end early. Well, okay, if it's kindergarten or bad weather, sometimes we'll end early, but we're never going to go past that time. We try to be very respectful of parents' time. So that's what we are known for. We do a really good job of that, and we need to continue doing a good job of that, always starting and ending on time. For practice schedule, this is an example of one I use, kind of a template. I like in bold on the right side. This is this example of having my kids' names. So I have like my roster up here on the right because it takes me a long time to learn my kids' names. And so I like to have those there as I'm looking at my schedule as we're going. I like to have my kids' names there. As they're showing up, we have some kind of warm-up drill. So this is soccer. So just starting, just kind of passing the ball back and forth, station with a partner. So obviously you're walking around, they're coming in, you're trying to get them comfortable, you're trying to get them to meet other people. So this is a good drill as far as just getting them talking to each other, but also starting just the basic drills. And so here you can look through these. They're all on the Google Drive, so you have the link to these, but this is what I use just in general. And then I change this every single week. So again, these are just in general. They tell you some general ideas, but then I'll put in here specifics for what I want to work on that week. And that changes as we go throughout the season. After your games have started, you'll look at a game, you'll think, okay, what did we do well? What do we need to work on? What are some situations? But as you're thinking about your practice, think, what specific skills do you want your kids to get that day? You can't hit every single skill, every single practice. So think about kind of as a strategy going throughout the season. Your first practice, this is what skill we're going to hit. Second practice, third practice, so on and so forth. What specific skills are you going to hit? And try to make sure that you're getting your kids better each practice. They leave your practice with something that they didn't know, or maybe a little bit better than they came. Priorities. Practice should be fun. This is something that kids should look forward to. They should enjoy being at practice. Devotions are a huge part of what we do. And so we always try to make sure devotions preferably are in about the middle, which works well because this is also a good water break time. So I tell my kids, hey, go grab your water bottle, come back, meet me at the middle of the field, and we'll get in a circle, they'll be able to drink their water, and we'll get to talk about Jesus. Devotions are a great time, for you to introduce the gospel to these kids. But this is also a great time to grow your team as a team. So they'll be really nervous at first to try to answer questions. You might have one or two kids that just want to dominate and answer all questions. But as the season progresses, you should see more and more kids realize that this is actually a time where they can talk as well. And so ask open-ended questions, try to get kids involved here, and you'll see that not only are they growing in their knowledge of Christ, but they're growing as a team as well. This is a really cool opportunity. And then player development. Again, we want to focus on making it fun. We want to focus on on our devotions, but this is a practice. You should have some specific skills that you want, that you're implementing, and you're trying to grow your athletes as soccer players as well. All right, game day. So on game day, it says a start time. Now that start time is literally when the whistle's blowing as that first kick takes off. So that is not what time to arrive. Your arrival time is going to be probably about 45 minutes before your game time, okay? Because we have pregame devotions. Usually we have a banner run. So know what your arrival time is and communicate that to your parents. It is not that time that the game starts. Starters and substitutions. So if you're new to Upward, Upward is very different in how we do who starts and how you manage substitutions. I told you earlier that my Upward site has a system for managing those. I have a different one. I like paper. I like to have a paper in my hand that I can hold. So I made this. All right, so right here, I know this looks maybe confusing. Over here, this is my roster, and I just copied the disciples' names. And then I had the exact same names again down here. So this actually serves two purposes for me. So our Upward soccer game is divided up into 6 periods, and you'll substitute at the end of each period. So right here, this column right here with these X's tell me who is starting. So that means Peter, James, Andrew, Jude, Philip, Thomas, Simon. Those are all starting. John and Matthew are not. John and Matthew will start off on the bench. Well, second period, the first, we go John, Matthew are on. We keep going down, and then Peter and James are off. Okay. Second or third period, we start off with Peter and James because they were the ones that are off. Peter and James are on. We go down here, and this is, of course, assuming there are 7 people on the field. It changes depending on age group. Thomas and Simon are off. Next period, we start at Thomas. We go down, keep going down until we get all of our starters. And then Jude and Philip are off. And so we have this rotation so that as we go, we have equal playing time. Now, for starters, this is my column. This is the people who started in this game. On my next game, I would come right here to John and say, put an X on his name, put an X on Matthew, get rid of those. Okay, so because John and Matthew were on the bench to start the game, then on the next game, so game 2, they would be the first on my list who are starting, and I'll just go down from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If there's 7 players on the field, there you go. There's my starter for the next game. So not only are you rotating who plays as far as each period, you also have a rotation of who starts. So you have, by the end of the season, every kid should have almost exactly the same playing time, but they should also have almost exactly the same number of starts. Also on my roster, I have it listed in this order: Peter, James, John, Matthew, so on and so forth. Now, this is not in order of ability. So Peter is probably not my best player and Simon my worst. In fact, I'm probably going to try to make it a pretty even distribution because I have this rotation. If Peter and James are my best 2 players, I don't want them next to each other on my list because then I have my best 2 players out. And so I try to make this list pretty evenly distributed as far as players. And I make this list one time and stick to it all year. So when I make this list, I make it after seeing these kids in 1 or 2 practices. I might not even have a great understanding of what they do, but make that list best you can. The point of all of this is you have an equal distribution as far as who plays, who starts. All right. This part right here we'll get to in just a second on my video. We'll get to that in a second. All right, starters and substitutions. Post-game meeting. This is also super important. So after your game ends, as soon as your game ends, you're going to shake hands with the other team, and then you're going to go to one of the picnic tables that should be set up close to where the concessions are. Every team will have a picnic table. You should encourage parents. I need to put this on here. Encourage parents to join you. parents should come and join you, should gather around. Obviously, there's only room at the picnic table probably for your kids to sit, but enjoy the parents to kind of huddle around. And this is where you kind of just break down the game and talk about, what happened. This is not the time for you to do like you're screaming at kids and telling what they did wrong. This is an encouragement meeting. This is, telling kids how, that, what they did well, focusing on the fact that we just had fun. But then game day stars. So let's focus on game day stars. So this is really important to the Upward system. The game day stars go through, no matter what sport you're coaching in Upward, you have these game day stars. And there's 5 different colors. There's red, blue, gray, I'm supposed to say gold, not golf. Gold and white, okay? So immediately after your game, you're going to be at one of the picnic tables. You're going to go through your roster, and each child gets 1 star based on their performance. So so for instance, you might hand one kid a red star. Red star means defense, and you'll hand them that. Maybe they did a really good job as goalie, or they had some really good defensive stops. You'll get to the next kid on your roster. Maybe you'll give him a gray star because he had a key goal scored, or maybe he made a really good pass, or maybe he distributed the ball to his teammates really well. So each kid gets a star. Try to be very specific when giving out stars so that your kids know what they did to deserve that star. And this is actually a really good opportunity as a coach to tell not only that kid, communicate to that kid what your expectations are. It's like, this is what you did and this is what I wanted from you, but you're also communicating to every other kid at that table, this is what we're looking for. So you can be very specific so kids understand what it is that you're looking for them to do. So I went through here, and hopefully I'll get some more things added to these. So red is for defense, blue is for just effort, gray is for offense, gold is sportsmanship, and white is Christ-like. So I tried to put things on here as far as, just in my experience, these are the reasons, some specific reasons we gave kids these stars. Gold and white, I know there's a lot of overlap there, what's sportsmanship versus Christ-like. But for Christ-like, we really just try to focus on specific words of encouragement or praise for another athlete. And so a kid who just really went out of their way to praise or maybe lift up one of their teammates. Maybe they were responding to negative behavior from another person, and they responded really well to that. Just think, as you're going through these, try to, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. So that brings us to these. Now you'll see I have up here white, blue, gold, and I have these little X's here. So my X's here would show me that, hey, I've given Peter in a previous game a white star, 2 gold, and 1 gray. Okay, so that means that we're probably on our 5th game because so far he's gotten 4 stars. So I'm going to try to give Peter a blue star or a red star in this game. I'm going to look for a reason to give him a blue star or a red star. I try to evenly distribute as the season goes on the stars. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to try to. I'm going to look to try to give Peter a reason to give him each of those stars as we go on. Now, these boxes, as a coach, I always freeze up when I'm handing out stars if I don't make notes throughout the game. So as the game's going on, I have a clipboard and I have this paper in front of me, and I'm writing notes in these boxes. So James scored a goal. I put that on that box. John helped a teammate up that fell down. I put that in that box. Matthew is really running hard on both offense and defense. I'm putting that in there. All these notes I'm making on these kids so that when I get there, I can be very specific in telling them why they're getting each star. I don't have to try to think back in the moment as all these parents and kids are looking at me and I'm about to hand out this star. I can just read off my paper, hey, Jude, this is why you're getting a white Christ-like. I really liked how, when Philip scored a goal, you were the first person to go over there and tell him good job. Even though you were on the sideline on the bench, you're cheering your teammates on. And so look for reasons and make those notes. If you have an assistant coach, which hopefully you do, this is a really good thing for one coach to be assigned to do, or maybe you both have this paper and you're both taking notes. And so that way you can just compare notes real quick and put these on. So those are game day stars. Please emphasize that and do that really well. That is a really important part of game day. And that is what kids are going to leave upward with. So on Saturday, when they go home, the last thing you would have said to them is what they did to get their star. And so that's really what their takeaway from game day is. Snack rotation. This is probably more the responsibility of the host parent, but is part of the post-game meeting. So I'll put that in there. Typically, each parent is assigned a game and they'll take care of snack that day. If you go to the concession stand, you can buy the little plastic tokens for $1 a piece. If you give the kids a token, they can take it to the concession stand and get a snack and a drink with that token. So that's one of the easiest ways to do snack. But if parents want to bring their snacks for the teams, that's fine. But snack rotation would happen at that post-game meeting. All right. Lastly, if you're going to err on the side of over communicating. Have a system of communication that works for your parents. So whether it be the My Upward system, some teams have used the Band app. I typically just have all my parents in one big text message group, and I'm always really hoping that all of my parents have iPhones so that we can have the little iMessage group. But either way, have some communication system that works for you and your parents. There's not a set list of when you have to communicate, but I try to communicate twice a week. Once the day of practice, just kind of earlier in the day to remind them, hey, we have practice. Hey, make sure you bring water today. It's going to be really hot, or maybe it's going to be really cold, dress appropriately. Anything else I need them to bring. And then on Friday, the day before a game, I'll send a message out and saying, hey, we're going to be on this field. We're going to play at this time. We're going to wear this color jersey. And so try to communicate as much as you can, because this is something that at the end of the season, parents are always telling us, hey, wish my coach would have communicated more. So I don't think I've ever seen a parent say, I wish my coach would have communicated less. So, excuse me. Let's focus on that communication as well. All right, that's all I have. Thank you so much again for just being willing to be a volunteer in the system.